Stop and listen a few seconds to the inciting incident of Kyoshi Kurosawa's 2024 short. Did you hear that? You might have missed it, so I'll play the sound again for you. Maybe this time you should try listening with headphones. There it is. That sound, which shares the same name as the title of the film, is the sound of a chime. Now let's take a look at another from Kurosawa's work. The film follows Yoshi, an online reseller in Japan who moves out to a remote village with his wife in a house by the lake once his business makes a couple of big sales. The only issue, he's made his fair share of enemies in the process. Listen to what happens next. Now I know you heard that. Kurosawa is a master when dealing with sound. But something you might not know is that these are two completely different films. The first is Kurosawa's 50-minute short titled Chime, and the latter is his feature film, Cloud. The similarity, besides both of their expert use of sound of course, is that they were both released in the same year. Born in 1955, Chris Fujiwara writes, he was marked by American cinema of the 70s.
一番ポピュラーに見られていたのはやはりアメリカの娯楽映画です。
And having honed his craft as a director of low-budget and straight-to-video movies beginning in the 80s, Kurosawa was, by the late 90s, well-versed in the strategies by which a filmmaker can challenge producers and audiences' expectations while playing at satisfying them. While many directors spend their entire careers laboring over a single film for 3, 4, or 5 years at a time, Kurosawa has been at work, creating over 30 films over his 40-plus year career. Not only did Kurosawa release Chime and Cloud in this past year of 2024, but he also released a third film, a remake of the 1998 film Serpent's Path. The director of the original Serpent's Path? Well, it would be none other than Kurosawa himself. 3 feature films in a single year is astounding. People talk excessively about Spielberg releasing Jurassic Park and Schindler's List in the same year of 1993, and for good reason. It is an incredible feat. But I believe what has been equally impressive is Kurosawa releasing Charisma and Barren Illusion in 1999, coming out in the same year, Bright Future and Doppelganger in 2003, Kazuo Umezu's Horror Theater and Loft in 2005, as well as Creepy and Daguerreotype in 2016, and of course, the 3 that we already mentioned. One possible reason for his prolific style of filmmaking could be the mode in which these films are produced. For one, Kurosawa enjoys working within genre. He states,
あるジャンル映画を作っていたもうベテランだった人たちですね。
When I was much younger, we worked on 8mm. Sound was hard to capture. I made some silent movies. Dialogue had to be simple. That pushed me into genre film. He keeps his scripts lean, opting for sparse description and reliance on interpretation of characters through dialogue and plot setups. My scripts are mostly bare minimum, so that things can be interpreted on set. I'm unlikely to ever give a detailed description of place. Maybe I don't even know it. You could almost say it's incomplete. In this sense, you could consider Kurosawa as a director's director, focusing on his techniques and powers as a filmmaker, and wielding those tools to craft a film as effectively and quickly as possible.
悪意フレームで空間を切り取るんですけども、で切り取ったところしか
I do have to say, when I mention genre film, I don't mean it in a derogatory sense. Kurosawa certainly doesn't think about it that way. To me, a genre film is just a film, and I couldn't agree more. Some of the most celebrated films of the American culture are genre films. The Godfather, Titanic, Shawshank Redemption, Crime, Disaster, Prison, they all push the bounds of filmmaking and offer new ways to telling stories while still being attached to the conventions of genre that us audience members are familiar with. Kurosawa's work falls into that very same camp. What's astounding is not only the sheer volume of his body of work, but also its level of competence. In a career that spans decades, one which has produced over 24 films, some are bound to be better than others. But there's always a level of precision and craft found in Kurosawa's pictures that set him apart from other prolific genre filmmakers. It also certainly helps his case that a few of his films are considered to be some of the greatest of all time. Adam Naiman of The Ringer writes, Kurosawa's most powerful films, whether sinister enigmas like Cure and Charisma, or deceptively conventional dramas a la Tokyo Sonata, tend to be styled as metaphysical riddles, their ambiguity deepened and rendered all the more disorienting by the director's uniquely pellucid mise-en-scène. Kurosawa's framing derives some of its fearful symmetry and axial cutting patterns from Kubrick, but mostly minus the magisterial bombast. His interior spaces are profoundly ordinary, transferred into loci of terror by careful gradations of focus or lighting design, or else decisive turns of performance and tone. I think I might have mispronounced a few words. While I would certainly agree with nearly everything that Naiman says, I would argue that it is Kurosawa's use of sound that is arguably the greatest contributing factor to the aforementioned metaphysical riddles found in his most successful films. For example, take one of the first few scenes from his masterwork, Cure, the one that everybody has seen. An elementary school teacher is sitting alone on a beach when he encounters a strange individual walking by and asking him questions about where he is. I want you to listen to the sound design and notice how it makes you feel. It's disturbing, right? What I immediately notice, apart from the incredibly loud droning sound, is our setting. We're on a beach, and yet we don't hear any waves. We see them crashing in the distance, and yet nothing. The thought arises, maybe what we're supposed to be experiencing is something more abstract, something more interpretational. It would certainly make sense given the loud droning sound. This could be more of a representation of something. But then, we distinctly hear the clear sound of paper being folded into the backpack. That sound jumps out at us with precise clarity. It brings us into the moment. Not only that, but it also draws us into the personal world of the character that we're watching. And yet we're also alienated from the very environment that he's in. We hear the sounds coming from him, but nothing from the beautiful sandy beach. The framing of the shot, of course, is distancing and effective. The performance is great. He sits up and walks in a very interesting way. But the distinguishing factor behind this scene and the effectiveness of the alienation that the character is experiencing, and that weird distance between the real and the unreal, the natural world and the subjective world, all of that is created through the sound design.
さ、俺誰だか知ってる？え？わかんないんだよ。俺誰だろう？それって。
It's these two contrasting styles of sound design, that of the personal and the ambiguous, that create that strange metaphysical riddle that Adam Naiman is referring to in his article. Now let's jump 30 years into the future and take a look at his feature film, Cloud. Fun fact, I was able to attend a special screening of this film at the Academy Museum once it was selected to be Japan's entry into the Academy Awards for their international film. It didn't get nominated. It was also special because Kurosawa recorded a video introducing the film to the crowd. In this video, he stated that he admired Americans and their propensity for entertainment films. He told us that his aim with Cloud was to make his very own entertainment film, and that he hoped that us, being Americans, would be good judges for that. I thought that was pretty funny. He also stated in an interview with Variety that he made Cloud with the intentions of making something as realistically as possible. I had a hankering to make an action film. Many Japanese action films are too much about fantasy, either yakuza or serial killers. I wanted someone more ordinary to be the protagonist and perpetrator. An ordinary person faced with an unusual or unexpected violent situation. I don't consider the opening scene as an action scene, just one with an ordinary person in an extreme situation. With those two goals in mind, that of entertainment and realism, Kurosawa crafted something that is audibly quiet, yet at the same time gripping. Unlike Cure, with its loud, droning soundscapes, Kurosawa crafts something that is uniquely real with Cloud. We hear all the small things that we ordinarily tune out in our day-to-day lives, like the hum from a computer screen, or the gentle squeak of plastic bubble wrap, or the sound of a light turning off. Despite a completely different approach to sound design, the film arrives at the same tipping point between reality and ambiguity. Because everything feels so real, once the plot lines converge, their absurdism clash with the realism that had been built up with over an hour of realistic sound design, leaving us with a third act that feels completely otherworldly, despite it being so grounded at the same time. Once again, we're left with another metaphysical riddle, questioning the very nature of the world that we're watching. Fujiwara writes, Kurosawa is a filmmaker less interested in depicting a world where demons run amok and supernatural causality has free reign than in traveling along the border between the everyday and the supernatural. What I loved so much about Chime was that the story itself revolved around a sound. It follows a chef and teacher who encounters a bizarre student that tells him about this peculiar sound that he can't seem to get out of his head.
松岡先生には聞こえてますか？この音。音。チャイムです。誰かが叫んでるみたいな。
The sound latches onto the teacher, and then the world unfolds into a hellish soundscape that builds and builds until the very end. The film slowly evolves into a hypnosis, not only for the teacher, but for the audience as well, as we become further and further entrenched into the soundscapes of the film. To me, it harkened back to 30 years prior to the film Cure, which also used the delicate soundscapes to embark on a film about hypnosis.
さてよ。あれ何の音？ねえ。奥さんの話もっと聞かせて。
But what differentiates Chime from Cure is its direct and concrete emphasis on sound. It isn't simply a tool used by Kurosawa to enhance the horror of the everyday world, but instead, it is the horror and strangeness that we need to look out for. It's a sound that, once you hear it, it'll drive you insane. It's the sound of your everyday life that grows louder and louder and louder until one day you can't take it anymore. It's the sound of chime. Okay, that is the wrap on my Kyoshi Kurosawa video. I love his movies, although, man, I need to watch more of them because I've only seen a handful at this point. He's, produced so many amazing films. I hope to one day make another video on this filmmaker because as I was researching this video, I realized there's so much to sink my teeth into. I made this only on, his use of sound in a handful of films. Like, there's so much more to think about. I would highly recommend everybody check out these movies. Out of all of them, I would honestly say Chime is my favorite out of the ones that I discussed. I know that might be a little bit of a hot take because Cure is supposedly like one of the best movies ever. But I'm about to watch Tokyo Sonata pretty soon too, which I'm super excited for. But yeah, I hope you really enjoyed this video. I hope everyone is enjoying this format. This is video number 3. I'm trying to make 52 videos this year, since I started the channel 2 weeks ago. I appreciate the support that these videos have been getting. It really means a lot to me. It's very motivating to keep going and to keep making videos every week. And so I am going to keep making videos every week, and I hope you guys keep on watching, guys and girls. Want to get more girls watching these videos too? Man, it's like 90% guys so far in my analytics, which I guess makes some sense. Just like thinking about the topics I'm choosing. But anyway, I digress. Here are this video stats. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Subscribe.